Let's get it. Get in here. I love Gaddy. Make sure y'all give him a dollar. I love him. His information be spot on. He always coming with straight, just facts, straight up facts. Now, I've been saying this in previous videos. I oftentimes said this. It's not like I'm the originator of this, but I believe it was Dane who said this first. But I've been told y'all that white did not have the same racial connotation that it has today. I've been said this. I've been told y'all that free white did not mean hue of complexion, right? Right? Negro and black. So again, white did not mean that you were pale skinned. White just meant that you were free. Now, Negro and black had dual meanings. Negro and black could just be a descriptor term that means that a person had dark hue of complexion or was brown hue of complexion. Or by legal status, they were in servitude. Can the two be connected? Can there be a brown-skinned servant who was in servitude or slavery? Yes. Yes. But also there can be a dual meaning with a free Negro or white black person. What does that mean? They were socially free, but their hue of complexion was dark. Right? That's what that means. Right? So were there free black people? Yes. A lot of them, millions. Hence why I believe it was in the late 1700s, they got rid of some of their Negro problem, this Europeans, black Europeans, by shipping a lot of the free American Indian tribes that were rebelling against Europe. They shipped them to Africa. That's how Liberia was founded, so that they would not entice the enslaved American Indian. All right? I hope that makes sense. Let's go let Gaddy speak.
So, this is law. This has always been law. But let's go down to this sentence that you miss. Does not mean.
All right. So let's read it. It says free white persons. Free white persons refers to a naturalization act as amended by Act July 14th, 1870, has meaning naturally given to it when it first was used, is what they should have said. Given to it when it first was used in a state 103 circa 3, meaning all persons belonging, does not mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European race. It does not mean a person does not mean a Caucasian race, an Aryan race, or a Indo-European race, nor a mixed Indo-European.
Does not mean Caucasian
or Indo-European race, nor a mixed Indo-European race. Semitic or Mongolian peoples. Oh my God, I can't.
Aryan race, Indo-European race, does not mean you're not even part of the original four.
Right? It says does not mean Caucasian race, right? It does not mean or Indo-European race, nor mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. So white never meant you. So this is now proof of a historical lie that you told. This is evidence, right? This is evidence that when they were talking about white people in the 17 and 1800s, it did not have you in mind. In the 1600s and the 1500s, when they were talking about white, you were not it. How do I know that? How do I know they wasn't talking about you? Let's keep letting them finish, and I'll show you.
Oh my God, bro. Y'all misses one sentence. Does not mean
Caucasian race.
Free white persons.
Free white persons.
Does not on, G. Y'all needed to use the 13th and the 14th. That's what President Trump was trying to tell you. President Trump was trying to hide. It is what it is. I'm tired. Go and take a screen. I'm tired. Just go and take a screenshot, Jason.
Right.
Man, get in here.
That's why I was trying to tell y'all that if they get rid of the 14th Amendment, it would also affect white people, because the word free white person had nothing to do with white people to begin with. You need the 14th Amendment, white people. If they take it away, it will affect you more than anybody. It is how you got your freedoms. You guys are hard-headed because you think that Donald Trump is your savior, and he's not. He does not care about you. You aren't a trillionaire. You're barely a millionaire. He don't give a fuck about you unless you have dollar signs coming out your ears. But you don't understand, because they teach you the same bullshit history that they teach us, which is all lies. It is all predicated on white supremacy, which means you're missing a bigger picture. Free white persons wasn't you. You came to America indentured servants. Let me prove it to you. So let me read this article. I did this video before, but I'll do it again. The word slave came from my people. How Slavs and racism go hand in hand, by Martine Mostova. Article this person, Martine Mostova, she I guess put it up there, I don't know. But the initial writing, living of East Slavs by Sergei Ivanov. Sorry if I butchered that. Right? This is public domain, so anybody can find this article. Slavs are proud people with a rich history spanning 13th century. In Slavic language, Slava means glory. Slavo means word. And then there is an English word, slave. It goes back to the 9th century, when Slavs were frequently targeted and enslaved by tribes from the Iberian Peninsula and North Africa. Who were these Iberians? Iberians are Spanish and Portuguese. Yes, black. The Iberians were black. The Spanish and Portuguese were black. They're the same Spanish and Portuguese that came into America and enslaved the American Indian, us. Hello, somebody. Right? The North Africans, right, as well. Right? Some of the Arabics. Right? But anyway. And so the Latin word sclava, meaning both Slavonic and captive, was born. Sclave in German, esclave in French, esclavo in Spanish, slave in English. The word is interchangeably with us. When it says origin, medieval Latin, Slavonic, captive, Old French, esclave, and it says Middle English, slave. Middle English, shortening Old French esclave, equivalent of medieval Latin, sclava, feminine, Slavonic, captive. The Slavonic peoples had been reduced to a servile state by conquest in the 9th century. Etymology of the word slave, screenshot from Google, right? This is what that was. This right here, where you see the origins, that was a screenshot from Google where she got that. So it says, but it's not fair. As a slave, I bristle at the sentence. I said that right. At the sentence. Stop. The Slavonic peoples, if I said that right, the Slavonic peoples had been reduced to servile state by conquest in the 9th century. The 9th century happened to be when the Slavic tribes across Central and Eastern Europe started forming the first Slavic states. In the 9th century, my country was called the First Bulgarian Empire and was experiencing its gold age that included our biggest territory expansion, the creation of the Cyrillic alphabet, and the birth of the Bulgarian church. Yes, Slavonic tribes were getting attacked, captured. I'm sorry, y'all. Yes, Slavic tribes were getting attacked, captured, and enslaved, but they also formed their own countries, nations, cultures, alphabets, and branches of Christianity. Reduced to servile states. Give me a break. Now you're gonna notice in this whole video how so-called Slavs, so-called white people destiny swap with black people, and that everything they said happened to us in the transatlantic slave trade really happened to them. I mean, everything from the 12.4 million coming into America, how they tell Africans, how they say that they brought 12 million Africans to America. That 12.4 million was really them coming in 1892 via Ellis Island. And a little bit of them came before that in 1840, late 1800s, 1840s. So I'm going to show you and prove to you that the transatlantic slave trade is not real and it was a destiny swap. They took all of what happened to them and put it on us. And that's how Melville Huskovich and the eugenics movement created the African transatlantic slave eugenics, whole transatlantic slave trade narrative. Now go on. Reduced to a servile state. Give me a break. So why was this time in history when the Slavs started forming their identity and experienced a massive cultural boom, also the time when they became equal to the word slave? Why did Germanic and Romanic nations take the name we had for ourselves, Slavoni, and turn it into one of the most dehumanizing labels? Right? These black Germans, these Palatine Boers, right? Just being honest, there were black Germans too. Read Benjamin Franklin's observation concerning mankind and its peopling, right? The answer is simple and universal. This is how they saw us. In their minds, Slav and slave were the same thing. That's what they do to black people. Don't they try to tell you that the moment you hear the word, that the moment you talk about us so-called black people, us American Indian reclassified 1924 Racial Integrity Act, the moment that you see yourself and hear anything about you, and anytime they want to be derogatory, the one thing they try to do is associate you with being a slave. This is what was done to them, and this is what was done to them they do to us. You listen, Eastern Europe, or not quite Europe. Eastern Europe, or not quite Europe. In Europe, where classism, right? It was all about class. That's what white and black meant. We just went over that. White and black had nothing to do with your hue of complexion. In Europe, where classism, feudalism, and all kinds of enslavement have a rich history, Eastern Europeans, the majority of which are Slavs, let's say that again, Eastern Europeans, majority of which are Slavs, are at the bottom of the hierarchy. Sounds familiar? Isn't that what they're doing to so-called black people? That's American Indian, putting you at the bottom of the hierarchy? Come on, they destiny swapped. Everything that happened to them, they came into the Americas and did to us. Already seen as inferior. That's why Malcolm X said he pitied a white man. What would make you flee out of Europe, come to America, and be so brutal to a people who never did nothing to you? So much that you can burn a man to a tree, lynch him, and hang his family like it was nothing and bring your children to it. What happened to you in Europe to make you so violent and volatile and malicious and inhuman, right? Well, here's what happened. This ain't justification because we didn't do it to you, right? The same Iberians that enslaved you came in 1492 and enslaved us. Hello, somebody. Already seen as inferior throughout the Middle Ages, by the 1800s, Slavs were subjected to expulsion and massacres by Germanic groups. This anti-Slavic sentiment followed predictable trajectory of Germanic racism and a century later reach later, reached its natural conclusion, almost 11 million Slavs joined Hitler, a long list of murdered subhumans. So Hitler killed 11 million Slavs, allegedly, right? Subhumans. Why were Slavs targeted by Nazis? They were seen as intellectually inferior. Notice how they tell the black man and woman they dumb? How they keep trying to say, yeah, black people, you have lower IQs. Everything that was done to them, they do to us. Everything that was done to these so-called white people, these Slavs, they do to us. Remember that. We're going to read a lot of this shit. That's going to drill a lot of shit on home. I said I would make a shorter video if I can, so stay with me. Why were the Slavs targeted by the Nazis? They were seen as intellectually inferior and not really white, but invaders who were living on stolen Germanic land, right? It wasn't even about them not really being white. They were not considered high class. They were considered low class. Okay? Inferior, not really high class for real, but invaders who were living on stolen Germanic land. The plan was to eliminate 30 million Slavs, create room for the expanding Aryan race in the Eastern Territories, and enslave the remaining Slavic population. Is that not what they're trying to do right here in America to us? Ain't that what they trying to do to us? Kill out many of you and then try to enslave the rest? This is what they've been. Everything that happened to them is what they're doing to us. So play by play, book by book. They going back to old Germanic books, old stuff that happened to them in the past, and they doing it to us. They were living on stolen Germanic land. The plan was to eliminate 30 million Slavs, create room for the expanded Aryan race in the Eastern Territories, and enslave the remaining Slavic population. Today, nobody is trying to kill or enslave us, but we are still perceived as inferior. We are still seen as not quite white. This is that inferiority complex that got them going white power, because nobody's even thinking about them racially. But this is what happened. This is embedded in their body. This is the genetic trauma that been passed down, okay, of that shame and of that inferiority complex that got them out here showing out with us. In 2013, the UK suffered a collective meltdown over the expiration of a rule that prohibited free movement from Bulgaria and Romania. Newspaper headlines claim that 29 million Bulgarian and Romanians will flood the UK's borders. The combined population of Bulgarian and Romanian in 2013 was 27 million. We're on our way to Britain. A year from now, up to 29 million Bulgarians and Romanians will have the right to settle in Britain and claim benefits. And these gypsies in the slums of Sofia can hardly wait. Right? So they got to get government subsidies. Same people who would talk about us getting government subsidies. Since EU borders were opened in 2004, 11,000, they just giving you, Eastern Europeans have uprooted to live in England, and more are set to arrive over the next 12 months, tempted by tolerance and a host of benefits. Okay? Headlines from UK tabloid, screenshot by author. Were we angry? Yes. Did we feel dehumanized? Yes. Did we feel we are being unfairly stereotyped? Sound familiar? Who feels like that? Are so-called black people angry? Yes. Do we feel dehumanized? Yes. Do we feel like we're unfairly stereotyped? Yes. Sounds familiar? This is what they felt. And that very same thing that happened to them, they doing to us. A couple of years later, around the BRICS, I don't know how to say that, BRICS, I don't know, referendum, I had a performance review with an English boss. In that same conversation, after praising me for having done a great job managing my team and my project, he also said, I don't mind people immigrating from Bulgaria, who else will pick up our strawberries? Isn't what they say about black people? Isn't that what they say about immigrants? Isn't all that same very chatter and the way they speak, the way they were spoken to, it's the same way they speak to everybody else. They treating you like that because this is their history. This is how they were treated. And now they're the ones doing the treating. Innocent people who had nothing to do with their enslavement. Right? I don't mind people. And it's now what's crazy is the pale-skinned Slavics who transitioned themselves into the positions and the new identities of the Germans and stuff took on the ideologies of the original Germans and copy the hate to their own people. Ain't that nothing? I don't mind people immigrating from Bulgaria. Who else will pick up our strawberries? Right? Did that make my blood boil? Yes. Slavs are occupying a unique space in the convoluted power structure of human beings. As white people, right? Now she letting you know who they are. So now who was in the slave trade from the 9th century? White people. Right? She gonna drill on home, and I'm gonna show you how white people could have never owned black people in the 1600s because where they were enslaved in the Americas. I'm gonna show you. Slavs are occupying a unique space in the convoluted power structure of human beings. As white people, we know firsthand how other white people treat those they deem inferior. Right? Even if it's their own people. Is what she's saying, because she a Slav woman, right? She one of their own. But they took on the new identity of being German and stuff, and then they took on the ideology of the original Germans, and now they treat those people who kept their original identity bad. Has this expanded our understanding of racism or made us more compassionate to the people it target? Right? Hell no. Has this expanded our understanding of racism or made us more compassionate to the people it targets? Hell no, she said. Slavs are among the worst racists you'll meet. She's talking about white folk. Slavs are among the worst racists you'll meet. What's the deal with Slavs? If you talk with an average Slav white person, you'll get a whole laundry list of our glorious history. We felt the burn of hate. They don't even admit this. They don't even admit this. This is the stuff they don't admit, especially in America. It says, if you talk with an average Slav, you would get a whole laundry list of our glorious history. Yes, history that's not even really theirs, especially in America. We felt the burn of hate, persecution, and genocide. We've seen superior first world countries play down our culture. So most of us are eager to set the record straight, to explain just why we deserve respect. Sounds familiar? Is that not what black people are doing as a result of the mistreatment from these white people who were enslaved, who then came to America? Let's keep going. Then we turned around. Listen to what she say right here. This is a good one. She said these Slavs felt like they deserve respect. Then she says, then we turned around to the people of color and do to them what other white people, which is not true. It is true sometimes today now. Like I said, they took on the ideologies of the original Germans, and now that's how they treat the people who still identify with their natural Slavic, Bulgarian, and Romanic race, nationality. So they even treat them bad. It says, then we turn around to people of color and do to them what other white people do to them. Right? Well, what she really meant to say was we do to them what was done to us, basically. After 5 centuries of enslavement by the Ottoman Empire, listen to this. After 5 centuries of enslavement by the Ottoman Empire, many Slavics, white people, countries gained their independence around the same time. Listen to this right here. Many Slavic, so-called white people, countries gained their independence around the same time slavery was abolished in America. Say that one more again to all the people in the back who don't know what I'm saying. White people, these Slav countries gained their independence around the same time slavery was abolished in America. Lets us know you never enslaved us ever. You were in a slave trade yourself. You as a slave could not purchase a slave. You were a slave. You didn't have the money to purchase slaves being in slavery. You were in the slavery from the 9th century to slavery was abolished in 1865 in America. You came in 1840s into America as slaves because slavery wasn't abolished until 1865, and the majority of you came in 1892. So any of the white people that came in 1840s, you were still, well, actually no, because in 1808 slavery was abolished. Indentured servitude was the new classification. So I stand wrong on that. Correction. You were still being indentured servants. So you are contractual workers after 1808. So yes, you would have came into America out of the Ottoman, still in the Ottoman slave trade, transfer over into the Americas as people who would be in bondage, which means that you were socially black and would not be classified as someone who is white. So now you know that free people of color was not you at all, because a free person did not have anything to do with ethnicity. It had something to do with whether you were free. You were considered free if you were you were considered white if you were a free person never in bondage. You were considered black if you were a person in bondage. You white people would have never ever been considered free, given the fact that you were in the Ottoman Empire from the 9th century and just transported from Europe into another indentured contract here in America. So you were always in bondage. So you would have been socially black. So when they're talking about free whites, that is not talking about you. That is talking about the free people who were black here in America. That's why that man put the 2 black men up there, because that's who were the free whites. The American Indians who did not lose the war, black people, are the black European who came over to America that were not indentures. Hello, somebody. You were in the Ottoman slave trade. You could have not owned anybody. After 5 centuries of enslavement by the Ottoman Empire, many Slavic, so-called white countries gained their independence around the same time slavery was abolished in America. Decades later, Slavs were escaping persecution and fleeing to northern states, crossed paths with black communities who had fled Jim Crow. Jim Crow is 1877. Right? That is Jim Crow, 1877. If you're looking for a sense of kinship between these two groups who were set back centuries of violence and tried to forge a new path to a better future, don't look among the Slavs. And so these so-called American Indian, right? These so-called black people, American Indian, who had been dehumanized in the Jim Crow laws from the Slavs, right? Right? Because that's who has made all these Jim Crow laws, right? You would think that because they have a common enemy, right? And that was the black, Spanish, and Portuguese, that they would forge a unity together to defend themselves up against the black, Spanish, Portuguese, and the black European elites. But no, whites decided to discriminate against every brown-skinned person and even hurt those American Indians who did nothing to them. Let's keep going. It say, okay, let's go back to it. Say, okay, so forge a new path to a better future. Don't look among the Slavs. And the warmth. Okay, so this is a book that she was reading from. In the warmth of other suns, right? In the warmth of other suns. Isabel Wickerson relays a story of black family that purchased an apartment in the all-white town of Cicero, if I'm saying that right, filled with the first and second generation immigrants, Czechs, Slavs, Poles, and Italians. Again, so who are they talking about? All y'all white folk that thought that y'all was free and enslavers. She just let you know that you were not free. She's white like you. You were not free in 1865. You were not free prior to that. You were not here prior in the America because you were in the Ottoman slave trade. This is how we now know, matter of factly, you did not enslave any Africans and bring them to the Americas. You did not have the opportunity because as she is reading to you your history, you were in slavery. You were in indenture. You did not get your freedom until 1865 when America had released you from your indenture contracts through Emancipation Proclamation, right? So it says, in the warmth of other suns, Isabel Wilkerson relays the story of black family that purchased an apartment in the all-white towns of Cicero, filled with the first and second generation immigrants, Czechs, Slavs, Poles, Italians. The residents of Cicero immediately tried to stop the newcomers from moving in, and when they couldn't do that, they made sure to send them fleeing, and then made sure they won't come back. Listen to what they were doing. This is anytime you saw Jim Crow, anytime you saw these white mobs and militias burning. They didn't just when you were moving into their towns. Sometimes when they were moving into your town. Sometimes when they got jealous of your living, right? The way black people, they go in there, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they burned it down. Who? These Slavs, Czech Republic, Poles and Italians, these Slav nations came in and decided to lay siege to black communities, so-called black American Indian communities. Because now you know you ain't no African because they couldn't have never went over there and got you from Africa. That's why they don't have no disembarkation manifest to prove that you an African. That's why they ain't no such records exist. That's why they don't got no bill of sale, alarm, marquee of the boats because they ain't never went and got you from Africa because that's why they can't prove it because they themselves were slaves. That history never took place here in America. It never took place at all because they themselves were in the Ottoman slave trade and could not own you or possess you as black people at all to bring you from Africa to Europe when they themselves were being packed up and shipped from Europe into the America as indentures themselves. So I digress. Let's keep going. A mob stormed the apartment and threw the family, talking about what the white people, the Slavs, the people did to the black American Indians. A mob stormed the apartment and threw the family's furniture out of the third floor window as the crowds cheered below. The neighbors burned the couple's marriage license and the children's baby pictures. They overturned the refrigerator, tore the stove and plundered fixtures out of the wall. They tore up the carpet. They shattered the mirrors. They bashed the toilet. The toilet bowl. They ripped out the radiators. They smashed the piano Clark had worked overtime to buy for his daughter. And when they were done, they set the whole pile of the family's belongings, now strewn on the ground below, on fire. All because they did like that in Europe to a bunch of American Indians who had nothing to do with that. Same enslaved by the same Iberians. Fought for in this goddamn country several wars trying to fight the black Europeans that came over here doing a whole bunch of shit to us. Same people. We went through the same thing and here y'all over making stuff worse for us after defeating these fools. Isabel Wilkerson, The Warmth of Other Suns. As a Slav, I was brokenhearted, but not surprised to read those lines. Racism, from racial slurs to forced sterilization. Remember when they was eugenics movement, Planned Parenthood, eugenics started sterilizing black women? Mind you, this is the same thing that happened to white people in Europe They came to the Americas and did to us so-called black people the American Indian. And then they destiny swap, gave you their history, and then took yours. As a Slav, I was heartbroken, but not surprised to read those lines. Racism from racial slurs to forced sterilization is ingrained in the culture of Siberia. These are all the people who was enslaved in this Ottoman slave trade, who did all this evil stuff to us American Indian, which we've been telling y'all for years, even stole our identity, destiny swap, went into these boarding schools and made themselves who we are, right? Hello, somebody. It says racism from racial slurs to forced sterilization is ingrained in the culture of Serbia, Ukraine, Croatia, Russia, Slovenia, Ukraine again, the Czech Republic, Poland, Russia, and those Polands are the ones that you find being chief over American Indian tribes. Hello, somebody. Poland, Russia again, Ukraine again, Czech Republic again. Over here in Bulgaria, we run annual we run annual neo-Nazi get-togethers. And just like the English lost it over the impending tsunami of millions of Bulgarians, people have been losing it over Syrian refugees and Romanian populations. So we've made our streets hostile and dangerous enough. Slavs are great at racism. We take it and run with it. We really make it our own. Hello, somebody. That burning, knowing that you have Hebrews and know what the Bible say about hanging a man. Hello, somebody. And why is that? Right? Slavs are great at racism. We take it and run with it. Slavs, aka white people, are great at racism. We take it and run with it, and we really make it our own. And why is that? In the warmth of other suns, Isabel Wickerson described how Slavic immigrants to the U.S. simply westernized their last name in order to blend in. Right. And y'all was the ones telling us that we got our name from y'all. No, y'all got y'all name from us. Here's also more proof that y'all westernizing y'all names was y'all taking our names and making your name sound similar to our names, or flat out taking our names, not us getting names from you. Hello, somebody. Wilkerson's described how Slavic immigrants to the U.S. simply westernized their last names in order to blend in. With that tweak, and just by virtue of their white skin, they put themselves above the black communities, the so-called black community, American Indian communities, who had been living in the country for generations, and immediately started looking down upon us American Indian, right? And there it is. We hate being oppressed, enslaved, or massacred, obviously. We much prefer to be the oppressor, enslaver, or murderer. In my home city, Sofia, you will see countless residential buildings with swastika graffiti or signs about keeping our nation pure. It's crazy how they took the ideology of their oppressor and began to do what their oppressor did to them to other people, and even went as forth to use their oppressors, the Iberians, uniform, the KKK, right? That's why they get mad when you take nigga and reverse it on them, because that's the same thing they did to their oppressor. They took the swastika, they took the KKK uniform that the Iberians would wear against them and enslave them, and they turned it to their own. So when you being oppressed by them, who was oppressed by the Iberians and Spanish, take the word nigga and flip it around, that's why they don't like it. Because this is what they've done to their oppressors. They mock them. This is their way of getting back at their oppressors, doing unto us what was done to them, and using all the same symbols, costumes that their oppressor used on them, and now doing it to us. Boo. You can't make this shit up. A sign about keeping our nation pure. Bulgarians are proud of having saved our Jewish translation. So now you know who Jews are. Those who say they are Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Saint Infalt. Sounds familiar? They're letting you know that they belong to the Slav nation. Hello, somebody. This is what this girl wrote, not me, so don't get mad at me. Bulgarians are proud of having saved our Jewish population in the face of mounting pressure from Hitler. At the same time, it's common to hear a Bulgarian wistfully wish Hitler had finished the job when it came to Roman genocide. All right, we 40 minutes in. I just wanted to let you know I'm going to do a second part because people do not understand. This is the real history of why white people do black people in America so poorly. We don't understand that what they did, they destiny swapped with us, and everything that ever happened to them in history, they flipped the script and did to us. And we didn't do anything to you. And we ourselves, as American Indian, were enslaved by the very same people, fought wars with the very same people that enslaved you, came to America in 1492 and did that very same thing to our ancestors. Then we warred with them for years. From 1492, 1600, 1700, 1800, warred with the black Europeans till they were dying out. So they lost money. And then another European group with more money came in and destroyed the Spanish, the Iberians, and the Portuguese. And they had to bow to the English crown. Still black. Hello, somebody. Stay up, stay blessed. Wait for part 2.